Alan stared at his phone. Ivana smiled back at him from the screen. It was another picture of her standing in their living room. She looked happy, confident. He scrolled down through more pictures. Ivana at the market, Ivana with friends, Ivana in their garden. She seemed to be living a full life, a life he was barely a part of. They talked, of course, but the calls were short and superficial. How was the weather? How was work? The silences between their words spoke volumes. A chasm of distance separated them, a distance wider than the miles between his apartment in the Gulf and their home. 15 years he had toiled under the desert sun, 15 years of sending money back home. For Ivana, for their future. He had missed birthdays, anniversaries, moments big and small. Each sacrifice had chipped away at his heart, leaving a growing emptiness. Now, staring at Ivana's smiling face, a cold knot of doubt tightened in his stomach. What was he working towards? Who was he working for? He had to go back. He had to see for himself. He booked a flight home that very night. The airplane roared, carrying Alan across the ocean. He closed his eyes, each mile bringing a mixture of excitement and dread. He thought about their early years, their dreams woven together with threads of hope and love. He had promised her a better life, and he had kept his word. Memories flickered through his mind. Ivana's infectious laughter, the way her eyes sparkled under the moonlight. He remembered the sacrifices they had both made. Their tiny apartment, their meager meals, the way they held on to each other, drawing strength from their shared dreams. He had never doubted her then, not for a moment, but things were different now. A seed of suspicion had been sown, whispering doubts in his ear. Her recent silence, her evasive answers, they all fueled his unease. Had he been a fool to trust so blindly? Had the distance eroded their bond, replaced it with something fragile and unfamiliar? The plane dipped, the captain announcing their descent. Alan's heart pounded in his chest. Soon he would have his answers. The thought filled him with a strange mix of hope and fear. He prayed he wasn't about to face a truth he wasn't ready for. The airport bustled with activity. Families embracing, friends laughing, the air thick with anticipation. Alan scanned the arriving passengers, his eyes searching for Ivana. Years of anticipation, of longing, culminated in this moment. He spotted her near the back, her figure dwarfed by the crowd, but even from a distance he could see she was different. Gone was the timid girl he had left behind. This Ivana stood tall, her chin held high, her eyes radiating a quiet confidence. She saw him, and a smile bloomed on her face. A smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She hurried towards him, her arms outstretched. He embraced her, the familiar scent of her perfume enveloping him, but something felt off, a subtle shift in their dynamic. "You look surprised, Alan," Ivana said, her voice stronger than he remembered. "Did you expect me to be waiting for you in a donkey cart?" Her words were laced with humor, but they held an edge of steel he hadn't noticed before. The drive home was filled with awkward silences. Ivana's confident demeanor hadn't faltered, and it fueled the turmoil within Alan. He wanted to ask her about everything, about the life she had built in his absence, but the words caught in his throat. She led him through their home, each room meticulously decorated, radiating an air of prosperity he hadn't expected. "It's beautiful, Ivana," he finally managed, his voice a mere whisper. "How did you—" The question hung in the air, unspoken, but heavy with implication. Ivana smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. "Remember that old sewing machine you sent money for? The one I said would help me earn a living?" He nodded, the memory flooding back. "Well, it did more than that, Alan. It gave me a purpose, a voice." She led him to the garage, now converted into a workshop. Rows of sewing machines hummed, manned by women he didn't recognize. Fabrics in vibrant colors hung from the walls, intricate designs showcasing exquisite craftsmanship. A banner hung proudly above the entrance, "Ivana's Designs Established 2020. Alan stared, speechless, his heart flooded with a mix of emotions he couldn't comprehend. Pride swelled in his chest, but it was tinged with a strange sense of displacement. He had imagined returning home a hero, the provider, the one who had lifted them out of poverty. Instead, he found himself in the presence of a woman he barely recognized, a woman who had built her own empire, brick by brick, while he toiled miles away.